The vast mudlands of the Wash off Norfolk, where the eye can scarcely compute its scale, nor the brain absorb the wildlife which depends on Britain's dominant marine environment. Mud. Square mile upon square mile of mud. Out here somewhere lie the lost crown jewels of King John centuries ago. But tonight we reveal vast new riches shown up by modern science and the conservation organisations RSPB, WWF and the Wildlife Trusts. Here in the Wash, it's mud, mud as far as the eye can see. Glorious, of course. And we know how valuable mud is for our worms, crustaceans and wading birds. But we've had exclusive access to a report published tomorrow which shows that humble sea mud could be more valuable in terms of storing carbon for the UK than all of our forests. These huge flocks of birds point to rich food out here in the mudflats. The shore littered with seashells underlines that. But the carbon store discovered in tomorrow's report is quite simply staggering. Called blue carbon, stored in mudflats, the product of millions of tons of decaying plant and animal life down the centuries.
We found that 244 million tons of carbon is stored there. And to put that in perspective, it's actually good to look at how much we think is added every year, and that's potentially up to 13 million tons of carbon, which is in the range of 2 to 3 times more than forests.
Wider scientific sampling like this of our seabed continues, but tonight's research is now fully mapped on and offshore mudflats. No other country has done this.
It's the dominant marine habitat around the UK Isles, and it's mostly out of sight, and I think that's why it's so largely ignored. It's below the sea surface, and then when you look at it, it looks like there's nothing there because all the animals are living within that mud, but it's a really important habitat.
So what's the problem? After all, few things look as untouched as large mudflats. They just sit there, they're safe, they've always been there. They're not under threat, are they?
It's very hard to find any undisturbed seafloor mud around the UK or globally. We've been trying to find some undisturbed habitat to look at for some of the projects I'm involved in, and it's actually incredibly difficult to find undisturbed mud, and it's because we're not protecting it the way we might protect other marine habitats.
Trawling and scallop dredging present real threats and disturbance. However, wind farms, after initial disruption, may well protect bottom muds and sediment longer term. Sampling is notoriously difficult offshore, and this report is largely based on just the top 10 centimetres, which revealed this high level of carbon storage. So the message from researchers is that it's time, urgently, to make mud political.
Well, we need to get mud on the political agenda. We need this considered within our marine protected areas, and certainly that means bringing mud to Parliament.
To do what?
Well, we really need policymakers to consider the holistic whole site approach in the management of our marine protected areas. And those marine protected areas can act as blue carbon reservoirs if we place them right, if we manage them correctly, and certainly we want to see that taken.
Researchers know the new government has placed green issues at the heart of its economic prospectus. With the coming global COP climate summit in the autumn, this groundbreaking research also looks likely to get a receptive audience globally. Mud just got noisy.